Hey everybody, I think you know what today's video is about, but that's not quite true, I think. Maybe you're excited, maybe you're disappointed, but we've got a Geldenwagen here today, and it's so unusual. And I think over the last few decades, everybody's got used to seeing a Geldwagen as something glamorous, standing outside some expensive eating place or some kind of nightclub. So everybody's forgotten what this car was actually designed for, and how this car is supposed to be used. So I look at the parked Helic near my work, and I see that in this situation, the owner uses the car clearly for its intended purpose. So I got the idea to make this short video about how to use a Geländewagen properly. What we have here is a piece of German engineering. As you can see, it is not young, but nevertheless, if you take away, so to say, from the field of view all this dirt, a little bit of rust, in general the Gelic is in quite, well, I would say, bearable condition, despite all these scuffs by branches. But you realize that it is used at least in the woods. At the most, maybe in the mountains, but given that we don't have mountains here, in Moscow, I mean, it's probably still crawling on it somewhere in the forest. Why crawl? Well, because you can't go fast on it. And I think that's what's happening, actually. A while back, I showed you a similar one that was parked right next to me. I understand that these people, the owners of these two Geländewagens, are doing some kind of cross-country riding. But this is one of their vehicles. But, as you can see, this is exactly as they show in some American movies, a pickup truck in which some scrub is stored. Well, there's something very, very similar here. But, in general, I think you have already paid attention, taking into account that this car obviously sleeps the last, probably, 20 years of its life on the street. In general, with the body of the whole, everything is normal, although the Geländewagen is not the most reliable car body. But again, it is normal. Everything is meant in the general sense of the word, because I understand that the car is either from the early 90s or some 80s of release. There are of course body problems, and they are quite serious. But again, what to compare it to? Because if you take a 10-year-old Helic, it's one thing, it will probably be very bad. But if you take a 30-year-old helicopter, then in principle it could be. But you see, it's got a winch. It's got everything right. The interesting thing is that the headlights are original, well, in this situation, hella. So, anyway, back to what this car is used for and how it's used. But of course, the 3-door version. I understand there must have been a 3-door car here originally. The Geländewagen. It's not very comfortable in the sense that it may be comfortable to drive around town. But to be honest, once upon a time, a very long time ago, I had a 3-door Wrangler and I had a 3-door Podgeric. It's very, very hard to drive in winter. I mean driving every day, driving actively in a sort of fast way. The reason is simple. Why is it difficult? Because when there is snow, when there is ice, when you will be turned around a couple of times during the day, I think you will treat 3-door SUVs a little differently. But that's the way it was for me. So I realized that if I'm going to buy something tall, it's not going to be a 3-door, because you need a long wheelbase. Well, specifically for me, well, of course, I had a Niva, which I showed you, which safely went to Germany. But it was not alone. Well, in general, about a 3-door Parker. Well, that is, right by the way. How do you like it in general? That's my conclusion. But I believe that a 3-door off-roader, it is still needed, probably, more out of town, it is needed in the woods, it is needed at the dacha, but it is definitely not needed as an everyday means of transportation, at least in the climate where there is winter and there is snow. But accordingly, we are talking about the city. I take it I've made a bit of a mistake. This Helic was originally a long wheelbase. It was a 5-door. Now I'm looking more closely at my own video and see that it actually already has a body. If it had been a 3-door, it would hardly have been a 3-door. Well, by the way, the turn signals, or rather turn signals, are even from some more recent one. Well, I was just telling you about the headlights. Actually, in the past, these parts used to cost pennies, even the original ones. Now, I don't know what the situation is. I wonder how much an original headlight will cost on a Geländewagen like this, even if it's not xenon. Look from the outside. How many doors were originally on this Gelic? Obviously, I think that still we are talking about a 5-door variation of this car, because the length is quite similar, although now I even look closely myself. Well, there will be some more footage now. We can have a look. Well, on a salon you understand. Here the salon is so relative, it means in usual sense of this word, salon. But I think that for this purpose, it is probably not needed as such. But, in general, on the one hand, it is probably a pity for such a car. On the other hand, it is right that it is used in such a way. And that's all for today. Goodbye, everybody.